I'm Shahar Azani, and in the news, Israel at war. Following Hamas's slaughter of innocent Jewish women, men, children, and the elderly, around 12 to 1,300 people, human beings, Israel is attacking this barbaric Nazi monstrosity, which is Hamas in Gaza and their supporters. While it does so, the eyes are pointing north to see what Iran's other regional proxy and puppet might do, Hezbollah. Joining us on JBS is Lieutenant Colonel Reserve Sarit Zehavi. She's the founder and CEO of the Alma Research and Education Center and Israel's Eyes Up North for many years. Sarit is an IDF intelligence veteran and security expert. She lives with her husband and 5 children in the village of Kfar Vadim, located in the Western Galilee in northern Israel. Sarit, it's always wonderful to see you, even though these circumstances are absolutely harrowing.
Thank you.
How are you coping with everything that's going on, first of all?
I don't know. I try to be busy all day with the reports about what is happening and updates. We publish a lot in Twitter all the time. Things that people don't know, what you hear, not what you hear in the regular media.
So can I just take a moment? Can you just tell all of our viewers your Twitter handle so that everybody could follow you the same way I do, to get so much great information from you, reliable, objective, from what's happening in Israel?
I don't know how to say it. It's Israel underscore Alma_org.
Israel_Alma_org. That's the Twitter handle. X. Please follow. Yes, Sarit, sorry. So keeping busy at work, and a lot has been happening.
A lot has been happening on both fronts. We feel that we've never faced something like that since the Holocaust. Not even since the independent war, since the Holocaust. We feel that this is a massacre that, on the one hand, we should have predicted, and on the other hand, we have neighbors in the north that are no better than those in the south. And the biggest dilemma is, how do you make sure that it's not going to happen again? And while all the different conceptions about how you make sure never again collapsed, there is no life here, no regular life here. I live up north, as I've said, 12 kilometers from the Israeli-Lebanese border. And yet I sent my kids away a few days ago because we didn't feel safe. And they want to go back, and I don't let them go back. There is no school all over Israel. 360,000 reservists were recruited. This means that there is no regular life. Many of the businesses are closed because everybody is drafted. Those who are not drafted are volunteering to support the soldiers and provide them with food and clothing and everything they need, or to support those who lost their homes because complete communities were destroyed. And the communities next to the border with Gaza, those who left of these communities, these are very few, are evacuated. They have no home to go back to.
Yeah, we've seen the carnage that's unfathomable for any human eye to see, which is why, we frame it very clearly, as the government does, as humanity versus barbarism. This is not just Israeli fight, this is for civilization. And I just want to ask you, I know you're wearing the intelligence hat and you do a lot of work in this sphere. I want to ask you, as a woman, as a mother, as an Israeli, as a person, you mentioned before when you spoke about Hezbollah, we know who we're facing. They're no better than the Nazis in the South. And yet we were still shocked by what they did. It's like, on the one hand, we knew who they are, and on the other hand, they still caught us shell-shocked. Why this gap? Do you think that's the conception that crashed? How do you explain it to ourselves?
As a human being, I can say that this gap is the gap of denial. I meet a lot of groups here from United States at the Alma Center, and I was asked many times, how can you live under the threat of the rockets and one brigades and tunnels? It's going to happen one day. And I always told them, we live in denial. That's the only way to keep it normal. We live in denial. And unfortunately, the mechanism, the psychological mechanism of living in denial as a parent probably infiltrated to the decision makers in the army. And they also lived in denial. And that's why we are surprised. And I don't know exactly what happened and how come nobody stopped them. I have a few answers. I can understand operationally that if you bomb all the borderline with rockets, and at the same time you bomb specifically the positions, the technology that's supposed to broadcast to the situation rooms behind who is approaching the fence, and actually they made us blind very quickly. And then you go to the border crossing and you kill all the soldiers in the border crossing. Everybody were killed. I saw the video. They entered the border crossing while the soldiers were hiding in the shelters under the attack of the mortars. They just killed everybody. And then they went to the barracks of the soldiers and they killed them in their beds. And that way, the border crossing, Erez border crossing, which is the only humanitarian border crossing into Gaza, that thousands of workers came from Gaza to work in Israel and to get providers in Israel. Now it was used to cross for terrorists with their vehicles and enter into Israel and get to the citizens. This was not an attack against the Israeli army. This was an attack against the Israeli citizens. The Israeli army that were killed in this attack, it's because it interrupted them to get to the citizens. That's it.
Right. And it wasn't even combat, the method of executions, the cruelty, the torture. We've seen the
I saw videos of executions. I saw videos of executions that they took people and then they shot them to death from the cameras on the cars, because today many cars have cameras, GoPro cameras,
right?
And they continue to film after people died, and you see what happened.
These are sights we can't unsee that will live with us for many, many more years to come, no matter what happens.
Yes.
We know that as much as we are ready to go in and quash the Nazi terrorist organization Hamas, we are also very much wary looking up north to what Hezbollah is doing. And I want to ask you, how come Hezbollah hasn't joined the fighting so far? What are they waiting for?
I don't know. I'm telling you the truth, I don't know. But I feel that Nasrallah knows that there is a plan, okay? And the reason I feel that, few reasons. First, because we were witnessed before all of that, in the past few years, the threats of Iran to have a multi-front campaign against the state of Israel. We talked about it many times here.
Correct.
Multi-front campaign from Gaza, from Lebanon, from Syria, from West Bank, inside Israel, from Yemen. Last month, there was a huge parade of Iranian munition in Yemen, for example. And we knew that this is what they are planning. They said that very clearly. Second of all, when I was on the border every day and I brought the groups to the border to see for themselves, we saw the military operatives on the border. I shared the photos with you in previous interviews. We saw them, the same guys, commando terrorists of Hezbollah, on the border. They are prepared for war. Okay? Third, when I checked the meetings between Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, and between PIJ and the Iranians,
Palestinian Islamic Jihad,
in the Palestinian Islamic Jihad in the past summer, I saw a sequence of meetings that when you look at who met who and when, you understand that this is a process of approval of plans.
Right.
And when eventually the plan was confirmed, a month later, we had this brutal attack, massacre over here. So there is a plan. Hezbollah is prepared for war. Why it didn't attack at the first like they did in 73 from both fronts? I don't know. Maybe we can think of different reasons, but none of them, it's just guessing. I don't know. What I can say is that since the IDF understands that Hezbollah is prepared for war, since the IDF understands that the capabilities of Hezbollah are 10 times more than the capabilities of Hamas with regard to the commando fighters that are experienced from the war in Syria, the atrocities that you've seen happened in Syria by these players, not only by ISIS, okay, and because the amount of rockets and artilleries. If in Gaza, the evaluations of the IDF are around 20,000, I don't know. We'll see if these are the numbers. They already spent around 6,000. But in Lebanon, that's 200,000, including precision-guided missiles, including 2,000 UAVs, including long-range missiles. This is a different reality. And I am worried because now the army is prepared to stop an invasion. There will be casualties, but not a catastrophe because the army is deployed all over the northern border. But what will happen in a year? Who will protect us here in the north? The whole conception of deterrence and containment, and that we can live with this gun to our head for centuries, this conception failed. If you have a gun to your head, eventually it will shoot. And so you have to be...
So you're saying that regardless if Hezbollah joins the fight now or saves some for later, the whole concept of living side by side with such a neighbor can be no more. And this leads me to the other reality, which we've seen. That's the tents that Hezbollah propped up. And Israel, to be honest, has done nothing about it.
It was a mistake to go to the diplomatic channel, no doubt, because of all the provocations. The tent is just an example for a provocation.
Right.
But there were ongoing provocations on the border and terrorist attacks on the border. In the past year, the situation here escalated greatly. And by the way, if people that are listening to us think that I am speaking to you now and the northern border is quiet, so it's not. We had every day we had few attacks from the northern border, whether it's infiltration, rocket launching, mortars, and I'm not talking about 1 or 2 rocket launching. These were 15 rockets that were launched 2 days ago to the Western Galilee, 5 minutes from where I am. There were alerts, not false alerts like yesterday, but alerts. We had 2 soldiers that were killed from an infiltration of terrorists 2 days ago, including a lieutenant colonel, and they killed the terrorists. 2 of them were killed. 1 went back to Lebanon. There was another infiltration earlier. There were rockets above Metula today. The northern border is not quiet. It's just not a massacre like what happened in the south, but it's not quiet. And
these attacks, and when something happens on the northern border, we all know that Iran's puppet Hezbollah is in charge. Even if it's not them, is it Hezbollah? Is it Hamas? Is it Islamic Jihad? Who is perpetrating the attacks? Or should we look at
They're very smart. They divided the claiming of responsibility between them. For the rockets, it was Hamas. For the infiltration, it was Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And for the anti-tank missiles against IDF positions and vehicles, it was Hezbollah. But bottom line, of course it's Hezbollah. What do you think that these factions can do whatever they want in an area that is fully controlled by Hezbollah in such a sensitive situation after they coordinated the whole campaign in tons of meetings?
Right.
This is not logic. It doesn't make sense to believe so.
What is your expectation? You know, we heard that the Americans are bringing forces. They're bringing USS Gerald Ford, aircraft carrier, Eisenhower, some other forces, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense is coming. How is it perceived by Hezbollah, this American presence, and by Iran, of course? Are they threatened by it?
I didn't see any, the responses are, if you will attack us, we will attack you. If you ground attack in Gaza, we will attack you. I don't know. As I've said, I don't see a border that is quiet. I don't see that. Now, having said that, don't underestimate the assistance. The assistance that is given by the US, this is extremely important, operationally and psychologically, both.
Why is that? Explain that to our viewers. Why is that important, Sarit?
Because if Israel is not alone, and it's a superpower that is willing to send its jets to Tehran, and that's the message, even though it was not said like that, it is clear, President Biden said don't. This is very clear. It's a clear message. They understand that. Now, does that mean necessarily that they will not attack us? I am not sure, because these people are thinking differently than you and me. But this is extremely important also for the Israelis, that we know that we are not alone. You can't imagine how it makes us feel when we see a US carrier on its way to the Middle East. When I first heard that, I didn't believe. I thought it's a lie. I didn't believe. This is so important. This is not a campaign against the state of Israel. Don't be mistaken. It's a campaign against the free world. This is what it is. In the eyes of the Iranian Ayatollahs, we are the long arm of the United States. Wherever they bear an Israeli flag, they bear an American flags as well. And it's the same in South Lebanon. We have pictures of South Lebanon that Hezbollah is painting the Israeli flag and American flag on the floor so everybody will be able to step on it as a humiliation.
They're very mature, Hezbollah. They're very mature.
Mature, but they have they have a very strong military capability.
Right.
And again, everything that you saw with Hamas is the same and much more than with Hezbollah. All Israelis know that. All Israelis know that. And the whole world should know that.
True. Is there any opposition to Hezbollah within Lebanon? I remember a video, when was it? Over a year ago, when a Hezbollah truck was making its way and the people in the village came up and they threw it out to make sure that there was
in 28.
You see, good memories last. What is there an opposition?
Yeah, let's say that I know this video very personally. Yes, there is protest. There is resistance to Hezbollah. Unfortunately, it's not strong enough. And unfortunately, Hezbollah succeeding in intimidating those who resist it. And in order to understand that, you don't need to interview me. You should call the next interview with Lebanese that are living in the United States. There are tons of them that ran away from the cruelty of Hezbollah. Yeah. So if somebody is becoming too loud against Hezbollah, they enable it. But if it is becoming too loud, he either get killed. Last month was killed somebody like that in South Lebanon, and videos were published from the assassination. So he's either getting killed or somebody pay him a visit. And after, if it's, we've seen examples of people publishing criticism in social media, and the next day they publish an apology because somebody explained to them,
right,
not only in words, what would be their destiny if they will continue.
Right. Was there no ramification to the terrible explosion at the Beirut port?
Not enough. Again, the ramification is not among the base of the Hezbollah. It's and more than that. Hezbollah is perceived as the one who is taking care of its base, of its Shiite base, because it is giving them all the services that they need that the government does not provide them. There is lack of fuel in Lebanon, an energy crisis. Hezbollah brings fuel from Iran. COVID, okay, Hezbollah brings medications and compounds of tests and and provide food. If you need money, Hezbollah will loan you. If you need support, Hezbollah is there. Boy Scouts, schools, Hezbollah is entrenched everywhere in the society of the Shiites of Lebanon. And that's why eventually it is raising new generations of these terrorists. And here I want to say something. This system, civilian system of distribution of the Islamic revolution values with education and with providing needs of a community it doesn't exist only in United States, in Lebanon. It exists also in United States, in some of these communities. It exists in South America. It exists in Europe and elsewhere in the world. And that's why I'm saying that whatever happens in the Middle East doesn't stay in the Middle East. If the world will continue to these generations of young kids grow and breastfeed with these radical ideologies that are completely against the free world, they will grow up to become terrorists in your countries.
And I think that's one of the most important messages that everybody could hear, because just like misconceptions existed in Israel, misconceptions exist elsewhere, including right here in the US. And I don't know if I'm sure you're very busy, Sarit, and on a personal level and of course at work, but I can tell you that in leading US college campuses and universities, places like Cornell, where the president of the university, when requested to condemn the beheading of babies and the slaughter of women and children, said that there are too many tragedies in the world for them to issue statements on. Stanford said that they don't deal with complex political issues, and they allow people to demonstrate in Times Square holding Nazi symbols, praising those massacres. Now, you know what was, and I know you'll appreciate it as an intelligence person. One of those demonstrators was interviewed on local news, and when they were asked about the babies, they said there are no babies. They're all settlers. They're all colonialists. But she did so covered. And the question was, why are you covering your face? Be proud. If this is what you feel, if this is what you believe in, let your employers see you, let the FBI see you, let us all know who you are. Because like you say, such horrible growings are right here in the backyard, and it better people wake up rather than get the kind of nasty wake-up call that we had received.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask you this, and I know you have so much to do. What's keeping you busy now, aside from everything that relates to the war itself and the shelter and the family? Work-wise for Alma.
My life mission is to spread the word about everything we just discussed. Doing that, here in Alma, you see it's a research and education center. So under that, there are two missions. One is to publish the research, the information that we find in the media, and the evidence that Iran is involved, the evidence who is involved among Iranians. We publish a lot of information around that in our Twitter. And second, with the education, I interview since this morning constantly. And this is why half of my staff is recruited, is drafted. We are working with very small staff now.
Right.
We built the shelter yesterday. I participated in Zoom in a conference in the European Parliament that was planned ahead, and I was supposed to be in Brussels. And the moment that I was supposed to start to speak, there was an alert. We ran for shelter, and then I pressed speak. I was supposed to start to speak, and there was an alert, and I just took the phone. The alert is in the phone. Took the phone, and I did like this, so everybody will be able to hear the alert. Eventually, these were false alert, luckily, but I think this exemplified the reality over here, the crazy reality. We got to the point yesterday that we went to the shelter, and we had a discussion: how do we close the door that nobody will be able to get in? Is the building, I'm inside the big building, is the building is closed? Is the street is closed? It's things that I've never imagined that I will get to this point.
Unfathomable. Well, Sarit, you know that we at JBS and our viewers and everybody who knows you really appreciates all that you do, first of all, as a person, but above all, the important work that you're doing up north for the state of Israel. And like you said, for the world, because you are trying with your work to awaken the eyes of the world, whether it's Europe, the US, and the free world that's being threatened by the master puppeteer in Tehran and its puppets, not just Hezbollah and Hamas, but also other organizations right here close to home. So We appreciate all that you do. We send you the very best of wishes from here in the days and weeks ahead. I know this national trauma, it's going to take time, a lot of time for us all, a lot of time for many people. But as we say, we're in this together, and let us continue. We shall thrive and we shall emerge triumphant. That's what I believe. We will win, even if it comes at a heavy price. Really appreciate you taking the time, your insights, the great work you and the entire Alma team does. We wish them all the best in the IDF and beyond. And we love you every day, and especially today, Sarit.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And to all of you, our viewers, we will continue to keep you updated about these important events unfolding in the Middle East, which I remind you are not just about Israel versus Hamas, but a battle of humanity versus barbarism. I encourage you to follow Alma Education and Research Center, to follow Sarit on social media, on Twitter, to join her lists, to read more, to enlighten yourselves, because now is not a time for ignorance. May we see better days. I'm Shahar Azani. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.